I'm Dan, and I organise and run mental health walks in Basingstoke.
Well, Dan, welcome. Really interested to find out about this, particularly as it's Mental Health Awareness Week this week. So hopefully lots of people are talking about mental health. And that's certainly something which has become a thing, hasn't it, recently? I mean, particularly for us men, you know, we never really talked about mental health very much in the past. But over the last, I would say probably over the last decade, things have started to change. It's still not brilliant. We still bottle things up a little bit too much. But I'm guessing all of that is part of the reason why you organise these walks.
Yes, definitely. So I've had mental health issues myself and challenges since my late teens. And I think what you've just said is exactly right. Up until much more recently, you kind of didn't talk about them. I hid them away, which now I've learned is completely the wrong thing to be doing. But I should be sharing and talking to people and trying to understand better what's happened to me. And I think the one thing I have really learned recently, and one of the key drivers for creating the walks that I do, is that sense of community. I think regardless of whatever mental health issues you are facing, it's very easy to shut yourself away and avoid everybody, feel like you're a burden, those kind of things. And actually, once you get out and you start to talk and you realize you're not alone, lots of other people are feeling the same, facing the same challenges. It's really kind of empowering and uplifting for you. That's definitely my experience of chatting in peer support groups and kind of opening up to people. It's quite a nerving thing to do. You know, nobody wants to talk about these kind of things, but I think once you do, you really do get that sense of a weight lifted from your shoulders. So that's, you know, one of the key drivers for me doing what I do now with the mental health walks.
Yeah, and I think one of the big changes that maybe has happened over recent years is that, you know, we always, I think, knew, you know, I can remember even as a kid, you would know that there were people around who, you know, were suffering from certain things. You didn't really know much about them, but, you know, you knew that they had some issues. But I think what's happened more recently is that apart from those really severe, you know, clinically driven mental health issues that there are, that we all have degrees of mental health problems from time to time. And sometimes I think we in the past, certainly, we've sort of just put those to one side and said, you know, oh, you know, I need to pull myself together. I need to get on with things. And people used to say stuff like that, you know, oh, you know, just
I've
sort
heard
yourself
those
out.
phrases,
Yeah,
man up,
exactly.
all of that kind
all
of
that stuff.
Yeah.
And now we recognize that actually those what would perhaps unkindly have been considered low-level mental health issues, not only can they be very, very debilitating and devastating for people at that level, but they can spiral out of control and become more serious.
Definitely. One of the things that I always say to anybody that talks to me about mental health is, would you feel the same about your physical health? You know, we're all worried about talking about mental health and is it a real issue? Is it not a real issue? Should I just, you know, like we've just said, you know, suck it up and get on, or should I talk to somebody? If you hurt your arm, if you hurt your leg, pulled a muscle, something like that, you go to speak to somebody, you seek advice for it. Why is there this issue with mental health that people don't feel they can do the same sort of thing and talk up about it? I know from my own experience in some of the peer support groups that I've been in, people will listen to other people's stories and then kind of feel ashamed because their issue isn't as big. But we've all got different capacities to cope with things, you know? It doesn't matter what it is. If it's bothering you, you need to talk about it. Don't compare yourself to somebody else. And as great as the social media has been for me setting up the walks and stuff, I think one of the downsides of it is we all portray this lovely, wonderful life that we lead, but you don't see the stresses, the anxiety, the stuff behind that person that is showing you this lovely life that they have. We've got to stop comparing ourselves to other people. We're all individuals. We all have our own battles to face. And I think if we do that together, it's going to be much easier for people to overcome things and a much better place for people to be able to share those thoughts and those feelings and stuff that we have. I use a lot of analogies in the things that I do. And I try to bring a light-hearted side to mental health issues, because I do feel it has a lot of stigmas attached to it. And one of the things that I always kind of say again to people that talk to me about it is, we've all got our own buckets, if you like, that's our mind. And it doesn't matter what that bit is that makes it spill over. It's going to spill over at some time. By sharing those issues, by talking about them, you slowly drain that bucket so you can cope with a little bit more. And again, coming back to the walks that I do, that's one of the things I hope the people that join me on my walks get out of it, is they can just unload. You know, you don't have to talk about childhood trauma. You don't have to talk about anxiety. You don't have to, go through your life history of depression. Just unload. If you've had a bad week and your partner's wound you up, you couldn't find a car parking space, just come and unload that on the group. And, we all do it. It sounds quite miserable. We're all there moaning, but we're not. We all do it in an uplifting way. We're all there to support each other. And it really is starting to build that community now of people that can just turn to each other. If you're having a bad day, you drop a note in the Facebook group and just say, you got out of bed the wrong side, not feeling great. And you'll get messages from people going, don't worry about it. We all feel like that, Stay in bed today if you're not feeling great. Just do what you can do. It's about that building that safe area for people to talk about. And from my experience in getting out in nature and having these walks is a great way to switch off from your normal life, if you like, doing something a little bit different with a group of people that understand you, that are not going to force you to talk about anything, that will happily just walk next to you if that's all you want to do. And, don't share anything. Just being in that community around others can really make a difference to your mental health. And I think that's, something that everybody needs to work on from time to time. And like you said, it's not something that we can all shy away from. At some point, people will feel some level of a mental health challenge, whether that be a loss of a loved one, whether that be, being made redundant from work, losing your job, moving house is stressful. All of these little things that I think people take for granted all build up. And that's where I use that bucket analogy, that at some point it may just tip over. And as a community, we're here to be there when it does sort of overfill and hopefully support you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about where the walks take place and how people can get involved in a bit, because I think that's something people will hopefully want to do. But just to pick up on what you've said there, I mean, I think it is really important that people feel that they have somebody alongside them, figuratively and in this case, literally, because I mean, I work predominantly from home, and I know a lot of people do, whether they are self-employed or whether they work for a business and they just happen to work remotely. And that can be incredibly lonely. And I've found that, I've been doing this 10 years working from home. And I've found that sometimes I just, sometimes I'm happy just staying in, cracking on with my work. Other days, for no real reason, I just feel like I need to get out among other people, and I'll just go and sit in a coffee shop or something, or I'll go for a walk, just feeling that people are around and that you can have some kind of interaction with other humans. And I think that's such an important thing and such a underestimated thing sometimes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I myself work from home most days, and you can just get into that routine of not talking to people, not going out, and before you know it, that then becomes an issue. It's, I haven't been out for a while, or you haven't done a particular thing for a period of time. And that little bit of anxiety can build up in us all of, I wonder if I can still do that. Did I do that as good as I did before? Because I haven't done it for a while. I think you need that human interaction to kind of really keep us balanced. Some of us are really lucky and we have a great friendship group that we can use. And, hopefully you won't never need to come and join the walks that we do. But that's not the case for everybody. Some people have gone through grief or loss or something like that, and they have lost touch with their friends through whatever reason. And I think COVID was a really big driver for that. And a lot of people being a little bit scared of going outside, and then being indoors on your own became the norm. And now you've got to try and break that cycle and get back out there. And hopefully, like I say, these walks are just a stepping stone to do that. And it's not something that we expect people to turn up to every time we run them. It's a as and when, you turn up, you talk to us, you can join our Facebook group. It's about that interaction and being there for somebody when and if they need you.
Now, I asked you before we started recording if you're happy sharing sort of your mental health issues that you've had. Are you able to sort of not give us all the details, but just kind of, just so people sort of recognize perhaps in their own situation a similar pattern? And I know everyone's situation is different and different people will have different issues at different times. But what sort of triggered things for you?
Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning of this, I've had mental health challenges since my late teens. I've had childhood related traumas, which I won't go into massive details, but that's kind of led me into kind of thinking about my mental health and working on it. I've had severe issues with anxiety. I used the example earlier of losing your job as like grief. And that was definitely something that happened to me. I had a really stressful period at work. We were all being made redundant. And because of my underlying anxiety, it really set things off to the point where I ended up taking a year out of work just to work on myself, if I'm honest, and just to kind of understand what was going on. And that was the first time I'd gone into therapy, and I had one-to-one therapy with a local therapist. And that really, really helped me kind of see things in a different way. And that was a good few years ago. And then everything sort of went on really well from there until more recently when things have flared up again. And I'm currently in a peer support group with Talking Health Therapies, an NHS service. And that's what's really pushed me to doing this kind of group setting and really building a community, because I get so much from that. Just hearing other people's stories and being able to share mine and know I'm not being judged. So in my personal experience, I've had trauma, I've had anxiety, I've had depression. There's been periods of kind of agoraphobia. So I've had quite an experience of challenging mental health issues in my life. And I try to look at this as a positive now that I can support others and help them through their challenges. I've done studying to try and understand it myself, because I'm one of these kind of analytical people. I think if I can put some logic to it, I'll be able to kind of work through it. So I've studied and been able to support others through that. And I'm currently studying to be a mental health first aider, because I believe that will be able to help me as well understand myself, but also support those in a really structured way that join our walks.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's really important that people have the access to, obviously, professionals, that can be very, very helpful, but it's not always the right thing at the right time for everybody, so that in itself is not always the one thing that helps. Sometimes, it can be, going on a walk or just having that conversation with people who aren't professionals. They're just humans. And I think that can be such a powerful thing alongside any professional help that you may need as well. I think those two things work really well together.
Yeah, I think from my own personal experience as well, it took me a long time to go to see a therapist, because that's a big step. Admitting to yourself that you've got these kind of issues, then going to talk to somebody in that clinical environment. It did me the world of good once I'd done it. But I think had there been more stepping stones towards it when I was feeling those points 20 odd years ago, I think it would have made it easier. And hopefully that's what people can see: community support, peer support, walking groups, anything like that as that stepping stone towards it. If you're feeling that you might need that kind of support, going to do it, opening that door, meeting those kind of professionals is scary, is daunting, might lead, spike your anxiety, those kind of things. Hopefully this little bit of a more relaxed environment where you're not really being helped in that way of, you tell me all your issues and I'll guide you through it. It's just that general chat, opening that little crack in that door to say, I can talk about these issues now, I think is a really useful tool for people that can then go on to whatever real medical support that they need. And if I'd have had it earlier, I certainly think I would have gone to a therapist a lot earlier in my life.
Yeah, no, I think that is really key. And I mean, we all like using analogies and things. You've used some great ones in this conversation. And as we've been talking, I've been thinking, mental health can be like a dripping tap, can't it? If you're rubbish like me at any sort of DIY stuff, if the tap's dripping, you need somebody to say, well, why don't you try changing the washer or whatever?
Yeah.
Before you need to call in a plumber because the whole kitchen's flooded. It's that situation, isn't it? Sometimes just, the guy next door or the woman down the road, they can give you the advice you need that will help you before you get to a level where you really need to get some serious help.
Yeah. One of the other analogies that I use is it's kind of like a game of snakes and ladders. You have your ups and downs.
Yes.
Sometimes they're big ups. Sometimes they're big downs. Sometimes they're just little spikes and things that drop in your daily life. And that's where I really see things like this come in is, it's when you've just dipped a little bit before, like you say, you get all the way down. These are the little pick me ups that will help you to balance out and stuff. So, yeah.
No, that's I love that one. I saw that one on your Facebook page. I think, no, that's a really good one. So where do these walks take place? How often do they take place, and who are they for?
So at the moment, our walks are taking place once a month because we've only just sort of set up these walks. We tend to do them on a Sunday. Our next walk is this Sunday because we wanted to end Mental Health Awareness Week with a nice little walk. I am bombarding people on Facebook with techniques that they can use to help their mental health this week. We are meeting this week outside Waitrose in Basingview. We picked this location for people that need to use a bus to get into the town centre. It's close to the bus station. It's close to the train station if you're coming from a bit further. And Waitrose, lovely, give you free parking on a Sunday. So anybody can get there. We then tend to walk over towards Eastrop Park, walk around the park, just on the outskirts of the park, just to break away from our normal surroundings. We've got another walk coming in June that will be in Basin Woods because the weather's a bit nicer. Hopefully the ground won't be wet and muddy. And just to get out into nature, we're going to do that walk. And again, that will be on a Sunday starting at around 10 o'clock. All of the walks are for everybody. We pick very accessible routes. So if you do have any form of disabilities, you can certainly join us. We're not expecting there to be steps or difficulty walking when we go into Basin Woods next month. Again, it will be a route that's pretty well pathed for everybody. We're not going to go off the beaten track. And it's really anybody that just wants to feel part of a community. You don't have to have mental health issues. If you just want to come along because you're feeling a bit lonely or isolated at the moment, come along. If you have got issues and you'd like to share them, come along and share them as well. At the moment, the groups are quite small. We don't want to have 30, 40 people because that's overwhelming for people. But as our community grows, which it's growing quite quickly, I was quite surprised how many people have jumped on board and tried to get involved with us. We will be doing more walks and they will probably be split between smaller groups and larger groups, longer walks and shorter walks. I'm very flexible with the way that we are running these walks. These are a walk for people that need them. It is not for me to be there and going, oh, we must do this and we must do that. It's about being around when people want to be around. So again, as the longer nights come in, we might be doing evening walks for people as well that can't make weekends. I constantly post in our groups polls around when would you like a walk? Where would you like to go? Do you want to bring your dog? Do people not want to bring their dog? It's about making people feel included in whatever works best for them, really. That's my whole philosophy behind doing these walks is it's a walk for everybody. At the moment, like I say, they're Sunday mornings once a month at around 10 o'clock we meet, but they will evolve over time. So please look out for the events on Facebook. We've got a website, Mental Health Walks Basingstoke. Get involved. If you want to name a location, tell me where you are and we'll hopefully set something up there.
Well, look, it sounds brilliant, Dan. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in this. Obviously, we'll, signpost people to mental health services if that's what they feel they need at this time. Get the professional help that you need if that's appropriate for you. But this, certainly for all of us, I think, who, we all struggle with things from time to time. And this could be a great way to kind of nip that in the bud before it becomes something more serious. Just being with people, being in nature, going for a walk, having a chance to talk, that human connection, I think, is so valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what you say is right. This is not replacing any form of counselling, therapy, those kind of things. This is that stepping stone into opening the door and starting those conversations around any issues that are bothering you at that point in time.
Brilliant. Dan, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Could you be a guest on About Basingstoke? We would love to hear what you're up to, whether you're running a business, whether you're a community group or charity organisation. Perhaps you've got an event coming up. Get in touch. Just go to aboutbasingstoke.com and let's get the word out in Basingstoke.